Hey, hope everybody had a good week. I am here with Bobby, CEO of Renovating Retirement. And this month is going to be talking about reaching out to past people that you have interacted with. So that follow up, those nurture campaigns, and then tracking that. Um, End of last month, we started really talking about evaluating where you were at, if you had reached kind of the goals that you were hoping to be at for the end of Q1, and then figuring out how to reestablish. For the vast majority of people, you enter Q2 and realize that you way overshot on the goals, and there should at least be a certain level of kind of regathering your thoughts and reestablishing a plan of attack, which generally means, oh, wow, I need to reach out to more people, or I need to do better at follow up, or somewhere in the, uh, from conversation to close, there's some kind of breakdown. So, Bobby, let's start with kind of the big overarching part of this before we get into the nitty gritty of how to write a good email or what to say on the phone. And let's just talk about what you use or what you have used and why you changed to track people that you have talked to. So before they're an active client, maybe you've had an initial conversation and they weren't ready. Maybe, how do you track that versus someone that, say, you've gone all the way through and done case design and they just weren't ready to follow up, they weren't ready to move forward, or they were too hesitant and needed time. How do you track those different ones, and then how do you kind of keep it all straight?
Perfect. So let's hit on a couple things real quick. So big overarching information. The riches are in the follow-up, period. The average sale happens between touch points 7 and 12. Yeah. The average salesperson stops before 5. That tells you why the averages of pay and everything else are so low, right? So whether you're running a sales team, if you're a sales manager or you have a team, this is good information. If you're an individual and you just want to build your own pipeline, the mastering the follow-up is, and the pain that comes with that, is the most important sales skill. Because once a lead comes into your life, you should never stop touching them. It is a matter of texting. It is a matter of sending them articles. It is a matter of calling them, being top of mind when something happens in their life. The only way to do that is by repetitive touch points. Yeah. So that being said, this is a super, super important topic. So how do you keep that system in place? How do you create that system, right? That's a struggle that all of us have. If you are with a big company, they probably have a CRM. What CRM stands for those of you who don't know, is Customer Relationship Management System. So Salesforce.com is a huge one. HubSpot is a huge one. Those are the ways that salespeople keep figuring out who to touch base with, what products they've purchased, what services you've rendered, etc. So creating a CRM is going to be amazing. You need to focus on one, right? But with that is going to be data hygiene. It does not matter how amazing your CRM is if you don't use it, right? That's going to come down to just best practices. So we've talked through a bunch. Ada's part of the team that we've worked with, and we have a lot of agents all around the country. And doing joint work with agents that are outside of your team or inside of your team becomes difficult if you're not utilizing the same CRM, or you don't just all have a CRM. So a lot of things to touch on here. So I can go as deep as you want, Ada. But the CRM is going to be essential. I don't care if you use an Outlook calendar or Google Calendars or you use a spreadsheet, but you have to be able to track your own actions, period.
So tell me a little bit about what it is exactly that you're tracking.
So let's pick just generic CRM. I'm not going to talk brands. Generic CRM. You want to be able to know, have I emailed this person? And if so, when? And did they open it? That's a huge one. You want to know what conversations have I had? And when I did have those conversations, did I log the notes? I'm going to assume that you guys are utilizing the tool we're discussing. So I had a conversation and I put notes in the system. Now, when's the next follow-up action? Every time there's something done, there should be a follow-up action. That could be send them a text. It could be build a case for them if you're early on in the process. It could be schedule your next meeting, whatever. So have I called them? Have I emailed them? Have I put notes on them? When's the next thing I have to do for them? All of that needs to be tracked. So that's the sort of points.
I would add that it's also really important to track the stuff that doesn't apply to at all to like the case design or the product. So an example is I had a conversation 2 months ago with a client who was on her way home from the grocery store and talking about how she loves this expensive blue cheese and she's worried that she's going to have to start buying Kraft salad dressing because she can't afford to buy this expensive blue cheese dressing that she likes. And so 2 months later, when we had a conversation and I was presenting, here's how we can help increase the income and get you some guarantees and get you cost of living increases, I brought up, this is important because I want to make sure you can continue to have the salad dressing that you like. And for her, like it got a chuckle but there was you could see like a certain level of, wow, I'm an individual here. Like that hit an emotional kind of point of feeling like she was valued and important and all of these things. And so rather than trying to remember this for 2 months, including those kinds of weird random details, oh, they have a cat named this, they have 7 dogs, whatever it is, something that you can bring up later that lets them know that you see them as an individual is huge, because in the moment you think you're going to remember it and 2 months later you don't.
Absolutely. Especially once you get busier and you have 100 clients a month that you're talking to, right? And so creating that, and every CRM has a different version of this. That's why I didn't want to be specific with the brands, but I call it the rapport section, right? So do they have a favorite alcohol, a favorite salad dressing? Does their wife like a certain sports team or purse or whatever? So remembering those details is going to make, exactly like you said, I loved what you said. I'm an individual here, right? When I talk to Bobby, he knows that I like this cereal, right? and when you reference that 6 months down the road, a year down the road, right? Hey, how did that side project go with XYZ thing, right? Mm-hmm. I know your daughter was competing in a basketball match last time we talked. Is it still basketball season or are we moved on to something else? Those little things to help you build that rapport become super important. Yeah. And you are not going to remember them all, no matter how much you think you are. And so building that within whatever CRM, I call it rapport section. You can call it gifts, whatever it is, and allowing that to, refresh your notes, review them before you have the next conversation is super important.
So tell me about, you have a client that says to you, hey, I like this. I've got too much in my life. I can't think about it right now. Reach back out to me in 2 weeks or reach back out to me in 6 months. How do you, obviously you're putting these notes into your CRM. Mm-hmm. Most CRMs will have some kind of function where it can ping you. Are mm-hmm. you just making sure you're logging into that daily and looking at those tasks? Are you tracking the follow-up tasks elsewhere? How do you kind of manage the follow-up itself, like the tracking of what you need to do when?
Super important question and a great question. So everyone's going to have a different system. I encourage you to figure out your system, right? Every Friday afternoon, I do nothing but client follow-ups. So the end of the week, I'm touching base with active clients that are in underwriting or have just moved their money or have something going on actively. I reach out with phone calls and emails if I can't reach them, just to give them an update, make them feel in the process. At the same time, you can lock off another hour or whatever for people in the situation you described, right? Hey, I just want you to reach back out to me. And so I batch my follow-ups. If I know that I'm going to be sending emails versus calls, my calls are going to be focused around active people that are currently in the process with me. My emails or texts are going to be nurture sequences. So if you have a drip campaign set up, which I would highly recommend everybody have, then great. If you don't, make this a custom, a couple hours on a Friday or a couple hours on a Monday, whatever works for your calendar, where I'm talking to a client who loves real estate, let's say. And so I will go get a third party podcast or something and say, hey, just thought about you and that project you have going on. I'd love to reconnect. Give this a listen and let me know what you think. Now it's a very customized, that takes me all of 5 seconds, right? Because just like every other advisor, you have a list of third-party voices, podcasts, videos, resources, and you just grab them, right? I have them all built into my email, which is built into my CRM. So I have a signature and I throw real estate investors, and I'll edit it out to make it specific to that person and I'll send it. So if you're nurturing them, if there's somebody that wants to push you off a couple quarters, I would still be doing this. Maybe not weekly, but at least touching base with them every month. Mm-hmm. Put them on your drip campaigns. Certain drip campaigns you have, they're going to get an email every day, every week, every month, whatever your system is. So they're at least seeing your name. Yep. But then the specific ones, the one-offs, hey, thought about your daughter in that basketball tournament. Hope she did really well. Can't wait to talk to you in fourth quarter, or whatever the system is. By allowing them to see your name, see your text, you're top of mind, right? They're thinking about you. Then if they do have spare time, they're going to reach back out. Hey, I know I said follow up with me in X amount of months, but I saw your podcast and I wanted to talk to you about something. So that to me is my system, right? Every week I have, you have different silos of follow up, right? If they're active, you're touching base with them way more often. If they're months off, maybe you're touching base every couple weeks. So I use my CRM as my, hey, send this to Billy about real estate on the 13th of May.
So you're putting that in as soon as you get off the phone with them and they say, hey, reach out to me in 6 months. I'm swamped. I can't do anything. And so you're going to set the system to ping you, say you want to follow up every 3 weeks after that. So you're going to set it up so that it's pinging you every 3 weeks for the next 6 months to send them something or do a follow-up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so what I do is I tell all the people that I work with, every time you touch a client, there should be another follow-up action that you schedule. Mm-hmm. Okay. It doesn't mean it has to be a meeting, but every time you touch a client, you should have a follow-up action. So if you were my client, Ada, I call you, I don't get an answer, I leave a message. Boom, follow up on the voicemail with a text message in 2 days.
Got it.
That action is now in your name in my CRM.
Got it.
And that's more data hygiene, but it's good practice.
So then you're putting somebody into your CRM as soon as they become a lead, right? As soon as you have an initial conversation, they're going in there right away. You're not tracking those leads differently or say using the CRM only for clients. It's everybody and anybody.
Yeah, that's actually a great distinction. So some people, and I think this is wrong, but some people believe that the CRM is only once someone becomes a customer. Yeah. But if you're a salesperson, once they enter your orbit, they should be in your CRM. That's my belief. Because there are people that I meet at networking events. There are people that I meet at dinners, like they just want to follow up. I snap a picture of their business card and now it's in my CRM. So that needs to be in your orbit, whether you're networking or whether you're selling. Because creating that system is, if you can have it housed in one place, they will eventually. Am I echoing on your end?
No, you froze for a second and then echoed for 1 minute and then you're good now.
Okay. So they will eventually come into your orbit, right? So I have I have reverse mortgage specialists. I have loan officers. I have trust attorneys. I have business owners that are all in my orbit. And so part of my customer resource or relationship management is about that relationship. Doesn't mean they're a customer. It means they're part relationship. And I follow up. I have different pipelines for sales leads, for networking leads, for all those things.
So talk a little bit about that. So you're following up with people even if you're not looking to get a direct sale from them. So what do you say? Because that's obviously not a, you know, hey, I want to touch base. You want for however you're that message. So what are you following up with, say, somebody that you want to use as a referral partner or as kind of an added bonus, a way to bring value to clients? What are you saying? How are you kind of keeping it relevant and worth their time to talk to you?
Yeah, so that's a great question because ultimately everything we do should be value add,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's say you're talking to a CPA. How do I add value to them? Not how do I get leads and referrals from them? Not how do I, get a sale? It has to be value, right? Gary Vaynerchuk says jab, 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 right hook, right? So that jab is value, 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 giveaway, giveaway, giveaway. Then you're top of mind for your referral partners, just as you are for your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I'm talking to a CPA and I've just had a great conversation with a reverse mortgage specialist, which by the way, I did, and I was blown away by that tool and understanding it better. So now I'm going to reach out to all my CPAs and say, hey, I know that you're working with these business owners or high net worth people, or even just normal net worth people, and they are looking for deductions later in life. Have you looked at the benefits of a reverse mortgage?
Yeah.
Like, here's some things. Here's a one pager on how you can add value to your people, right? Or here's a great podcast on that.
Mm-hmm.
And just value, value, value. And that email, that reach out can be the same across every CPA you deal with, right? Okay. Replace the name Tony with Cindy, right? And now all of a sudden it's personalized to her.
So how are you? So I think in another episode, we'll talk about kind of building those nurture campaigns and what you're going to say and how to kind of add value. And so that you can build something out. So you're not getting a ping in your CRM and suddenly having to come up with it in the moment. But how do you pre-plan the nurture campaigns for your network, right? For people that are not potential clients, but like the CPAs, like how are you pre-planning that? Are you finding out about that? Are they planned out months in advance? And when you find new information, it just gets added to the end? And if so, how are you making sure it stays relevant?
That's a great question too. So some of these, especially in the beginning, you are making them as you go, right? So I reach out to my CPA friend, Cindy, right? And I say, hey, I just learned about this, continuing on with the analogy. I just learned about this reverse mortgage tool. Are you utilizing this, or are you seeing your clients utilize it? Like, very informal. And then that'll start a dialogue. And then from there, hey, here's some resources I found, blah, blah, blah. When you write that email, make that a template. Now you have a drip campaign. Like, you're starting that nurture sequence. The next CPA that comes up in your network, you add them to the list, and now you can put that in whatever sequence you want. And there's so many different tools that you can do this in. But even if you're doing it within your normal email, right? You can say, hey, send this to the CPA email to Tony that I sent to Cindy last month. And when that task comes up, I go grab the Cindy email, I edit it, and now I send it off to Tony.
So for this kind of nurturing of the network, it sounds like maybe it can't be as rhythmical as you would with a client, because especially in the beginning where maybe you don't have as much content, because you have to send it as you're finding content. Am I hearing you correctly, or am I missing something?
I think there's two ends. There's the ones who are starting it out, and the ones
Mhm.
who are building it, and that's what we've been talking about. Then
Yeah.
there's ones that have huge lists of networks or huge presence and content,
Yeah.
and that you can drip on people as often as you want. Like we say all the time, if you're adding value, send an email every single day, send an email every couple of hours, right? That you doesn't matter. They will unsubscribe if you're not adding value to their life.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be building a network, I would strongly recommend personalizing the content.
Mhm.
So for clients, for email lists, everything else, that can be automated. If
Right.
you're going to be building your center of influence, as we call it, make those personal, make those specific to the individual. So there is a little more work there, but the payback from a good network of referral partners is
Yeah.
huge.
That's true. That's a
So
really good.
spending that extra time to edit it, make it personal, like, hey, Ada, I know you were doing this in Dallas last time we talked and blah, blah, blah. I really thought of you when I saw this come out.
Mhm.
Now you think of me when you see something unique about what I do
Right.
versus just dripping on every CPA in your life,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
So that's a good investment of time and to
Mhm.
add that value, in my opinion.
So, I know we're gonna keep it kinda short today, but I wanna go back to what you were talking about in terms of how you manage your Fridays.
Okay.
Have you always used this system? Did you use something before, and this is what is currently working for you?
This is what's currently working for me. When I ran larger sales teams, Mondays were my admin days. I'd
Mhm.
follow up with the individual sales managers or sales people, depending on which team I was running. Then I would have client meetings from Tuesday to Thursday. And then Friday was more administrative as far as when I had 175 people, I would do follow ups. How did the week go with my teams? Just quick 30-minute meetings. But on an individual basis, I have developed the Friday part because it's a great rhythm for people who are actively in your process.
Okay.
Because if we're waiting on insurance or annuities or money moving or something like that, there's going to be a rhythm to that process and it will always be slower than you want.
Yes.
So what we have figured out is calling someone every week, even if it's to tell them, hey, nothing's changed, but just want to let you know we're on top of it, is such a huge like peace of mind process.
Mhm.
So that's why I started dedicating my Friday afternoons to calling everyone.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then that just expanded to Friday mornings, doing more of a message, email, text to people who aren't actively in that orbit.
So that speak real briefly on what you how you like let me rephrase the question. So you're calling people that are actively in process.
Yep.
Who are you texting? Who are you emailing?
So that depends on. So your example earlier was someone's busy right now and wants you to follow up in a couple months, right?
Mhm.
So that to me is a nurture sequence.
Okay.
I want to stay top of mind with them, and it doesn't have to be weekly. Can
Mhm.
be, but I want to send them something to let them know I'm thinking about them. Let them think of me, right? A lot of times I'll do short little videos in the email using BombBomb or something. Hey, it's me. I'm the guy you met with that you love so much, but you too busy right now. And that way they see my face. They love the interaction with the visual, right?
Mhm.
Excuse me. Especially when we have everything's digital now, right?
Yeah.
So give them more touch points. Physically send them a card. Excuse me. Um, those are things that you can add to whatever system you have. But for me, if they don't want to follow up for a couple months, then
Mhm.
every other week in the morning on Friday, I'm sending them something.
Okay.
If they need time to think about something, I'm sending them things more frequently. Hey, I know you're working on looking at that XYZ thing we talked about. I thought you'd look at this as a way to see another voice in the room to talk about it. So you send them a third party podcast.
Mhm.
And that can be more frequently than a Friday, right? But at least
Yeah.
Fridays. And now they're thinking about you over the weekend, or they're processing the podcast. They're thinking about that. So those are the ones that I'm touching base with on Fridays. Text, if we've already gotten to that point where we're communicating and they like that method. I find that with the younger audiences, they want text.
So that's interesting. Let me pause because I thought that's what I was seeing. And then in the last 6 weeks, I have found I've just met with a really large number of older people who said, hey, I would really rather you text me because it is so much easier than them needing to hear on the phone.
Okay.
Everyone's hearing is going. So I now, since after like the second person was like, can we just text? I now just ask people, do you prefer phone call or text? And I've been kind of surprised, just because a lot of them are people I wouldn't expect to be used to it, but it's worth asking and then noting it in those client notes in the CRM. But yeah, that's been actually kind of surprising.
That's actually a really great point. And I put that in my rapport section on the CRM. This person likes text. This person likes email. This person only likes calls. Yeah. So that's a great point. So it's not a general rule. It is a general rule. It's not a hard and fast rule of, if they like text, I put that at the top of my CRM, boom, text. Yeah. And then I schedule the next task as a text Billy to tell him about XYZ.
Yeah.
It's a great point though.
Okay. So somebody who is not currently using a CRM or not using it well, what is kind of your words of wisdom takeaway to them? Like, where do you start, right? So someone who's just getting started, or someone who's in the business and just uses an Excel spreadsheet to track everybody's contacts, or just has them stored in their phone, right? And they're doing all the tracking in their head. Where do you start if you're trying to build this out and get things out of your head and start automating them?
So for me, I start with free tools, right? So HubSpot has an amazing free CRM. They want you to get into their orbit because they want to sell you the more robust tools, right? Totally understand. Salesforce.com has a very low entry point product as well. Go with one of the big ones. It may be too much for you, but in the beginning, you need to start somewhere. If you're keeping everything in a spreadsheet, or you're keeping everything in your head or your phone, you are not doing yourself justice.
Yeah.
So pick one, lean into it, utilize it. And then once you
let me add before you go on, once we're talking about free tools, Zoho has a lot of free options, that are really competitive or very low for lead management software, for CRM, all of those kind of things. That's another big one. It's not so common, I think, in the US, but it's worth checking out if you want a competitive product with low, where the paid option is really inexpensive.
Yeah, and there's more that come onto the market all the time. There's some that are specific to Gmail. There's some that are standalone. Anything that works. My advice is pick one and just lean in. Once you lean into it and you start utilizing it, then you'll know, hey, I really want something with more email capacity, right? Give it 3 to 6 months of you actually using it. Don't half use it and say it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. You have to lean in. I deal this with salespeople all the time. Now, the second part becomes data hygiene, right? So you asked me a minute ago, do I put the tasks in? Do I open up my CRM every day? So the only things that I pull up every morning are my CRM and my Slack. That allows me to communicate with my team, and it allows me to nurture my leads. That's it. So then my email goes through all those things. And the end result is my life is simplified. So if I'm running everything out of my CRM, great, right? The moment I make a call, I log it. The moment I text someone, I log it. And as soon as I touch a customer, I set a new task.
Okay.
And that's what I require for everybody. So if you are doing that simple practice, you will see the benefit of a CRM.
Okay. So next week, I would like to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the rhythm of touching people.
Okay.
And we kind of touched on the, who you're calling, who you're emailing, all of that. And so if you're emailing somebody, you want it to add value, but it also has to be engaging enough that they are going to open it.
Right.
If you're calling someone, they have to, you have to be engaging enough on the phone that they want to answer and talk to you again next time. So be thinking maybe this week, kind of watch what are the phone calls you have that are really successful or engaging, because I'd like to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of those actual actions. How do you engage with people actively?
Perfect. All right.
All right. Well, have an amazing weekend and happy financial. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Have a good Easter, everybody. Bye.
Bye.